History is littered with catastrophic disasters. Each one is unique in its circumstances, its victims, its consequences. Yet when we examine them closely, we discover something profound. They are not random failures. They are not inevitable accidents. They are the result of predictable psychological patterns that appear again and again across different industries, different eras, different contexts. The 7 disasters. 1. The Titanic, 1912. The unsinkable ship strikes an iceberg and sinks, killing over 1,500 people. The ship was traveling at full speed through an ice field despite multiple warnings. The captain believed the ship was too large and too advanced to be threatened by ice. 2. The Space Shuttle Challenger, 1986. The shuttle explodes 73 seconds after launch, killing 7 astronauts. Engineers had warned that the O-ring seals would fail in cold temperatures. The launch proceeded, despite these warnings. 3. Chernobyl, 1986. A nuclear reactor explodes, releasing massive amounts of radiation. The disaster was caused by a safety test conducted improperly, with safety systems deliberately disabled. Warnings about the reactor's design flaws were ignored. For Enron, 2001, the energy company collapses after massive accounting fraud is exposed. The company's leadership engaged in deliberate deception while employees participated in fraud through rationalization and moral disengagement. 5. Tacoma Narrows Bridge, 1940. The bridge collapses just 4 months after opening, killing 2 people. Engineers had ignored warnings about the bridge's instability and had dismissed concerns from observers who noticed the bridge's excessive movement. 6. Deepwater Horizon, 2010. An oil rig explodes in the Gulf of Mexico, killing 11 workers and causing the largest environmental disaster in U.S. history. The disaster was caused by ignored safety warnings, cost-cutting measures, and a culture that prioritized profit over safety. 7. Boeing 737 MAX 2018-2019. 2 crashes kill 346 people. The aircraft had a design flaw that pilots were not informed about. Boeing prioritized speed to market over safety, and regulators failed to properly scrutinize the new system. The pattern emerges at first glance. These disasters seem unrelated. A ship, a spacecraft, a nuclear reactor, a corporation, a bridge, an oil rig, an aircraft. Yet, when we examine the psychological factors that led to each disaster, a clear pattern emerges. The same psychological mechanisms appear again and again. The same cognitive biases, the same organizational dysfunctions, the same human errors. These are not stories about technology failing or about bad luck. These are stories about human psychology, about how our minds work, about the systematic ways in which intelligent, educated, well-intentioned people make catastrophic errors. Understanding these patterns is crucial, not just for historical understanding but for preventing future disasters. The psychological mechanisms that led to the Titanic sinking are the same mechanisms that could lead to future disasters. The cognitive biases that caused the Challenger explosion are the same biases that could cause future spacecraft to fail. By understanding the psychology of disaster, we can begin to recognize these patterns in our own organizations, in our own decisions, and potentially prevent future catastrophes. The first psychological error that appears across all 7 disasters is overconfidence combined with dismissal of warnings. Overconfidence. In each disaster, the organization or individuals involved believed they were immune to failure. The Titanic was unsinkable. The Challenger was the most advanced spacecraft in the world. Chernobyl was a state-of-the-art reactor. Enron was the smartest guys in the room. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge was a marvel of engineering. Deepwater Horizon was operated by one of the world's largest oil companies. Boeing was the world's leading aircraft manufacturer. This overconfidence created a psychological state where risk was underestimated and danger was minimized. The belief was, we're too advanced, too smart, too big to fail. Dismissal of warnings in each case. Expert voices raised concerns. These warnings came from people who understood the risks, who had technical expertise, who had legitimate reasons for concern. The Titanic received multiple iceberg warnings but continued at full speed. The Challenger engineers explicitly warned that the O-rings would fail in cold temperatures, but the launch proceeded. Chernobyl engineers had warned about design flaws, but the test proceeded. Enron employees raised concerns about accounting practices, but were silenced. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge engineers dismissed concerns from observers. Deepwater Horizon workers raised safety concerns that were ignored. Boeing engineers had concerns about the 737 MAX design, but were overruled. The psychology of dismissal. Why are warnings dismissed? Several psychological mechanisms are at work. 1. Confirmation bias. Decision-makers interpret information in ways that confirm their existing beliefs. If you believe the ship is unsinkable, you interpret iceberg warnings as routine and If you believe the spacecraft is safe, you interpret engineering concerns as overly cautious. 2. Authority gradient. Junior engineers and lower-level employees fear challenging leadership. The organizational hierarchy creates a psychological barrier to dissent. Speaking up can be seen as disloyalty or as a lack of confidence in leadership. 3. Cognitive dissonance. When warnings conflict with the organization's narrative of success and safety, decision-makers experience psychological discomfort. To resolve this discomfort, they rationalize the warnings away. The engineers are being overly cautious. This is just routine maintenance. We've done this 1,000 times before. 4. Normalization of deviance over time. Warning signs become normalized. The bridge moves excessively, but that becomes normal for this type of bridge. The reactor has design flaws, but those flaws are acceptable. Cost-cutting measures compromise safety, but that becomes normal business practice. 5. Incentive misalignment. In many cases, there are powerful incentives to proceed despite warnings. The Titanic had a schedule to maintain. The Challenger launch had been delayed multiple times. Enron had profit targets. Boeing had competitive pressure. These incentives create psychological pressure to dismiss or downplay warnings. The second major psychological pattern that appears across all 7 disasters is organizational dysfunction, characterized by steep authority gradients and suppressed dissent. Authority gradient. In each organization, there was a steep hierarchy where lower-level employees feared challenging leadership. The captain of the Titanic had ultimate authority. NASA management had authority over engineers. Chernobyl had a rigid Soviet hierarchy. Enron had an authoritarian CEO. The bridge engineers had ultimate authority. Deepwater Horizon had a management structure that prioritized production over safety. Boeing had a hierarchical structure where engineers' concerns were overruled by management. This steep authority gradient creates a psychological barrier to dissent. Junior engineers and lower-level employees understand that challenging leadership can have consequences: demotion, marginalization, termination, or social ostracism. Suppressed dissent. In each case, there were people within the organization who had legitimate concerns, yet these concerns were suppressed or ignored. At Challenger, engineers explicitly told management not to launch. Management overruled them. At Enron, employees raised concerns about accounting practices. They were marginalized or pushed out. At Deepwater Horizon, workers raised safety concerns. They were ignored or retaliated against. The psychology of suppressed dissent. Why do organizations suppress dissent? Several psychological mechanisms are at work. 1. Groupthink. Within organizations, a consensus develops around the leadership's narrative. Dissent is seen as disloyalty or as a lack of faith in the organization's mission. People who dissent are marginalized. 2. Psychological safety. Employees don't feel psychologically safe to raise concerns. They fear retaliation, marginalization, or termination. This fear creates a chilling effect on dissent. 3. Organizational culture. The culture reinforces loyalty and consensus. People who fit are those who believe in the organization's narrative. People who question are seen as not being team players. For moral disengagement, managers and leaders rationalize the suppression of dissent. They tell themselves that the concerns are unfounded, that the engineers are being overly cautious, that dissent would undermine organizational cohesion. 5. Cognitive dissonance. When dissent challenges the organization's narrative, it creates cognitive dissonance. To resolve this discomfort, leaders dismiss the dissent or marginalize the dissenter. The consequences. When dissent is suppressed, the organization loses access to critical information. The organization becomes an echo chamber where the leadership's narrative is reinforced and alternative perspectives are eliminated. This creates a dangerous situation where problems are not identified, risks are not properly assessed, and catastrophic errors are not prevented. The deepest psychological pattern that connects all 7 disasters is moral disengagement, the process by which intelligent, educated, well-intentioned people justify behavior that violates their own moral standards and causes tremendous harm. The psychology of moral disengagement. In each disaster, people engaged in behavior that they likely knew, on some level, was wrong or dangerous. Yet they justify this behavior through several psychological mechanisms. 1. Euphemistic labeling. People do and call what they are doing dangerous or unethical. They use language that distances themselves from the moral reality. It's not ignoring warnings. It's proceeding with caution. It's not fraud. It's creative accounting. It's not suppressing dissent. It's maintaining organizational cohesion. 2. Displacement of responsibility. People tell themselves that the responsibility lies elsewhere. I'm just following orders. Management approved it. The engineers said it was safe. Everyone does this. By displacing responsibility, they avoid confronting their own complicity. 3. Distortion of consequences. People minimize the potential harm. The ship is unsinkable, so the ice isn't really a threat. The O-rings might fail, but the probability is low. The reactor is safe enough. By minimizing consequences, they reduce the moral weight of their actions. For attribution of blame, people blame external forces for problems. The market forced us to cut costs. Regulators are too strict. Competitors are unfair. By blaming external forces, they avoid taking responsibility for their own choices. The cognitive dissonance. These mechanisms of moral disengagement exist because people experience cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort that arises when their actions conflict with their self-image and their values. The captain of the Titanic saw himself as a skilled, cautious captain, yet he was proceeding at full speed through an ice field. This conflict created cognitive dissonance. To resolve it, he rationalized. The ship is unsinkable. The ice isn't really a threat. NASA managers saw themselves as committed to safety, yet they were overruling engineers' safety concerns. This conflict created cognitive dissonance. To resolve it, they rationalized. The engineers are being overly cautious. The probability of failure is acceptable. Enron executives saw themselves as brilliant, ethical business leaders, yet they were engaging in massive fraud. This conflict created cognitive dissonance. To resolve it, they rationalized. Everyone does this. The rules are unfair. The profits justify the means. The question for all of us: these 7 disasters teach us a profound lesson. Catastrophic errors are not caused by evil people or by incompetence. They are caused by ordinary people who engage in ordinary psychological processes that allow them to rationalize dangerous and unethical behavior. The question is not, how could those people be so foolish or evil? The question is, where in my own life, in my own organization, am I engaging in these same psychological processes? Where am I rationalizing behavior that violates my own moral standards? Where am I dismissing warnings? Where am I suppressing dissent? Where am I experiencing cognitive dissonance and resolving it through rationalization? The legacy of these 7 disasters is a reminder that vigilance is required. Organizational cultures must actively encourage dissent and reward people who raise concerns. Decision makers must actively seek out alternative perspectives and challenge their own assumptions. We must create environments where people feel psychologically safe to speak up, where warnings are taken seriously, where the authority gradient is flattened enough to allow critical voices to be heard. The psychology of disaster is not inevitable. It can be prevented through awareness, through intentional organizational design, and through a commitment to truth over comfort.